The cargo shuttle moved slowly toward Core Station. Outside the windows, the giant orbital hub floated against the dark space, with lights glowing along its long arms. Tom sat in the back row of the passenger area, watching the view. This was his first time here. He had been assigned as a supply engineer to check the loading bays and make sure the cargo systems were working. Core Station was bigger than he had imagined. It was said to be one of the busiest trade points in this part of the galaxy. Ships came and went all the time, bringing goods from many planets. Humans worked here, but so did many alien species. When the shuttle docked, Tom followed the others into the main rival hall. The place was full of movement. Porters pushed carts, security officers checked documents, and traders spoke loudly into their comms. The air smelled faintly of fuel and something like spices. Tom carried a small bag and looked for the station's supply office. At the office, a tall man with a thin beard greeted him. "You must be Tom. I'm Rian, the base supervisor. Let's get you settled." Tom followed Rian down a wide corridor, through a lift, and into the main loading bay. It was huge, with metal floors, high ceilings, and rows of stacked crates. Machines rolled past carrying goods, and workers in different colored uniforms moved between the stacks. Rian explained the system. "Your job is to check the cargo scanners, make sure they work, and report any problems. If something dangerous shows up, you call security." Simple enough, Tom nodded. He had done this before on smaller stations, but nothing as large as Core. As they walked, Tom noticed one worker standing alone near the far wall. She was small in build, wearing a faded brown hoodie with the hood pulled low. She was moving crates from one stack to another, quietly and quickly. She did not speak to anyone. "That one there," Rian said quietly, "keeps to herself, works hard, never causes trouble. Don't even know her real name. The crew just calls her the quiet one." Tom glanced again. The worker's movements were steady and precise, almost like she had done this 1,000 times before. She never looked up. He wondered what kind of alien she was, but the hoodie made it hard to see her face clearly. For the rest of the day, Tom worked near the scanners. He checked readouts, fixed a loose cable, and logged the cargo shipments. From time to time, he saw the hooded worker passing by, always carrying something, never talking. During the midday break, most of the crew went to the mess hall. Tom decided to explore instead. He walked past the storage rooms and found himself in a quieter area of the bay. There she was again, the hooded worker, sitting alone on a crate with a small lunch box. She was eating slowly, her head still low. Tom thought about saying hello, but something about her posture made him hesitate. It was not shyness exactly, more like she wanted to remain unseen. He left without speaking. Later that afternoon, a shipment from a mining colony arrived. The workers moved quickly to unload it. The hooded worker was at the front, lifting heavy crates with surprising strength for her size. She moved as if she knew exactly where each crate should go, without needing instructions. When the shift ended, Tom made his way to his small cabin. The station's corridors were quieter now, but he still saw her in the distance, walking toward the maintenance exit. She moved fast, her hood still up, disappearing into the shadows of the side hall. Over the next few days, Tom settled into his routine. He checked scanners, calibrated sensors, and made small repairs. But he also found himself noticing her more often. She was always in motion, always working. She never joined the others during breaks, never laughed at the loading crew's jokes. Sometimes he caught her glancing toward the security gates as if she was checking something. Other times, she would stop in the middle of moving a crate, look around, then continue as if nothing had happened. Once, when a machine broke down, Tom arrived to fix it, but she was already there, crouched beside it, tools in hand. She finished the repair faster than he would have, then walked away without a word. Tom started to wonder, was she simply a worker who liked to be alone, or was there something else? He told himself it was none of his business, but his curiosity was growing. On the 5th day, as he was leaving the bay, Tom saw her again, walking toward the far storage area. She glanced over her shoulder before entering. It struck him as odd. Most workers had no reason to go there after hours. Tom stopped and thought about following her, but then Rion's voice came over the comm, asking him to check a malfunctioning scanner. By the time he finished, she was gone. That night, lying in his cabin, Tom kept thinking about her, the quiet one, the worker in the hoodie. Why did she keep to herself? Why did she move with such purpose? He told himself it was probably nothing, just a shy alien earning her pay. But a small part of him felt there was more to her story, something hidden beneath that hood. The next day, he decided he would pay more attention, not in an obvious way, but enough to maybe learn her name, or at least understand why she seemed so different from the rest. What he did not know was that the answer would come sooner than he expected, and it would change the way he saw her forever. Tom's routine on Cora Station was starting to feel familiar, but one thing remained unusual. The quiet worker in the hoodie. He had not yet learned her name. She was there every day, always moving quickly, always avoiding conversation. On the sixth morning, Tom arrived early to run a systems check before the main crew came in. The bay was empty except for her. She was stacking crates near the wall, her movement steady and precise. She did not notice him at first. Tom walked closer, pretending to check the cargo scanner beside her. "Morning," he said casually. She paused, gave a small nod, and went back to her work. No words. Tom smiled slightly, though she could not see it under his breath mask. "You've been here a while?" he asked out. She kept stacking, not answering. After a few seconds, Tom decided to stop trying. He did not want to bother her, but he did notice something. Every time she lifted a crate, her hands gripped it in the same exact way, almost like a train pattern dot. As the day went on, Tom started paying closer attention. He saw that she never wasted movement. If she carried something, it was always along the fastest path. If she stopped, it was always at the edge of the bay, never in the middle. And she never turned her back to the main entrance. During the lunch break, Tom sat with Rion and a few other workers. He decided to ask about her. "She's been here since before I started," said Mira, one of the cargo handlers. "Doesn't talk much, works harder than anyone else, though. Never late." "She's strange," said Coro, a tall man with a deep voice. "I've seen her at odd places during odd hours. Once I saw her near the maintenance tunnels at midnight. No idea why. Maybe she just likes walking," Mira said. Coro shook his head. "On a station like this, walking alone in the tunnels is not a hobby." Rion cut in. "Doesn't matter. She's quiet. She works. She doesn't cause trouble. That's good enough for me." Tom stayed quiet after that. He was still thinking about Coro's words. That afternoon, a shipment arrived from a remote farming colony. The crates were full of fresh produce and needed to be processed quickly before they spoiled. The bay became busy with workers moving in all directions. Tom was busy at the scanners when he noticed her again. She was not moving crates. This time, she was standing at the edge of the bay, watching the main doors. Her head turned slightly every time a new worker entered. She seemed to be checking faces. Then, when a large alien trader walked in, she turned and moved quickly toward the far side of the bay. Tom wondered if she was avoiding someone, or was she tracking someone. Later, when the rush had slowed, Tom found himself working beside her again. She was sealing crates for shipment. Tom took a moment and asked, "Do you like working here?" This time, she looked at him. Her eyes were sharp and clear, a color he could not quite name. She didn't answer the question, but simply said, "It is work," then turned back to her task. It was the first time Tom had heard her speak. Her voice was calm, but carried a certain weight, as if she had said far more than the words alone. That night, Tom stayed late in the bay to finish a repair. The crew had gone, and the station was quiet. As he packed his tools, he heard soft footsteps. He looked up and saw her, moving quickly toward the far storage area. She disappeared behind a tall stack of crates. Curiosity got the better of him. He followed, keeping his steps quiet. When he rounded the corner, she was gone. He He walked a little further and found a small side door partly open. It led into a dim hallway with low lights. Tom hesitated. This was not part of his assigned area. From the shadows ahead, he heard a faint sound. The click of a panel opening, followed by a short electronic beep. Then silence. Moments later, the sound of soft footsteps again. Tom stepped back and pretended to check a crate as she emerged from the hallway. She walked past him without looking, her hood still pulled low. The next morning, Tom arrived early again, hoping to see where she went before the shift began. But she was already in the bay, stacking crates as usual. Nothing seemed different. As the day went on, Tom noticed another odd thing. She never made mistakes. Other workers sometimes misplaced a crate or mixed up cargo tags, but she never did. Every label she placed was correct, every code exact. During the afternoon break, Tom stood at the edge of the bay drinking water. She passed by, carrying a small case. He saw her glance toward the security checkpoint again. This time, her look was sharper, almost like she was measuring the guards. That evening, as Tom walked to his cabin, he thought about all the small details he had seen, the careful movements, the washing of doors, the night visit to the side hallway. She was more than just a quiet worker. But what was she? A smuggler? A spy? Or something else entirely? Whatever the answer was, Tom felt certain that it would not stay hidden forever. And when it came out, it would surprise more than just him. It was a busy day in the loading bay. A transport ship from the outer colonies had arrived with several large crates. The contents were marked as machine parts, but the shipment was unusually heavy. Tom was at the scanner station, running checks on each crate before it was moved to storage. The bay echoed with the sound of machinery, voices, and the rolling of carts. Rian was giving instructions to the crew, making sure the unloading was fast. The hooded worker was, as always, working quietly on the far side of the bay, lifting and moving crates without slowing down. One of the new crates rolled toward Tom's scanner. It was tall, made of a dark metal, and had faint scratches on its sides. Tom placed the scanner over the surface and waited for the readout. The display showed normal cargo contents, bolts, gears, and small plates, but the reading was slightly unstable, flickering for a second before showing clear. Tom frowned. That's strange, he muttered to himself. He made a note to run a deeper check later. Before he could finish, a loud metallic crack came from the crate. Everyone nearby stopped and looked. Then, without warning, the side panel of the crate burst open. Pieces of metal tumbled out, scattering across the floor. The shards were thin, sharp-edged, and strangely shaped. As they hit the ground, they began to hum softly. At first, the sound was low, but it grew louder, making the air vibrate. The light from the overhead lamps seemed to shimmer slightly. Workers stepped back, unsure of what was happening. "What is that?" Mira called out. Tom didn't answer. He had never seen anything like it before. His scanner was still picking up strange fluctuations. The shards began to glow faintly along their edges, and the hum changed to a pulsing rhythm. "Everyone clear the area," Rian shouted, moving the crew back. But before anyone could take more than a few steps, the hooded worker moved forward. Quickly, she didn't hesitate for a moment. She slipped between the startled workers and knelt beside the shards. From under her hoodie, she pulled out a small pouch. With practiced speed, she opened it and scattered a fine silver powder over the metal pieces. The moment the powder touched the shards, the hum began to fade. The faint light along the edges dimmed until the pieces lay still. The bay fell silent, except for the distant sound of cargo lifts. Rian walked forward, his eyes wide. "How did you know what to do?" he asked her. She did not look up. "It was unstable," she said simply, gathering the shards into the pouch. If it was left alone, it could have damaged the base systems. Tom watched closely. That pouch she had used, it was from the restricted emergency kit. Only certain trained personnel were allowed to use that kind of containment powder. He had never seen her near the emergency storage area, yet she carried it like it was her own. Rian seemed to relieve the question further. "Well, good work," he said, though his voice still held some confusion. The hooded worker nodded and carried the pouch toward the storage room. She disappeared through the side door. Without another word, Tom stayed where he was for a moment. Looking at the crate, the outer label said machine parts, but the shards clearly weren't normal. Cargo. He made a note in his log to check the shipping details later. As the rest of the crew returned to work, Tom couldn't shake what he had seen. The way she had moved, quick, precise, without fear, was not how a simple cargo worker would react. Most workers would have stayed back, waiting for security to handle it. He also noticed something else while scattering the powder. She had positioned herself between the shards and the main control panels. It was as if she knew exactly what the shards might target. That was not an accident later. During the evening break, Tom walked into the mess hall. The crew was talking about the incident, passing theories back and forth. Some thought it was just faulty cargo. Others thought it might be sabotage. She handled it like she's done it before, Coro said, shaking his head. No way a regular worker reacts like that. Mira leaned closer. Maybe she used to work in security, she suggested. Tom listened quietly. He didn't share his own suspicion yet, but inside, his curiosity was burning stronger than ever. When his shift ended, Tom went to the supply office instead of his cabin. Using his clearance, he pulled up the records for that shipment. The crate had come from an independent freighter, not from an official colony. The sender's details were vague, and the cargo description was written in generic terms, no specific source, no tracking code. Tom checked the incident report. Rion had written only, unstable cargo contained by crew member, no damage to station. The report didn't even name who had handled it. Tom sat back in his chair. It was becoming clear the quiet worker wasn't just here to move crates. She had access to restricted equipment, knowledge of dangerous materials, and reflexes that spoke of training. As he left the office, he passed through the side corridor near the emergency storage. For a brief moment, the door slid open from inside. She stepped out, the hood still covering her face. She walked past him without a glance, her steps quiet, her small pouch no longer in sight. Tom stopped and turned to watch her go. He felt certain that the pouch was back in the emergency kit now, exactly where it belonged. But that only raised more questions. Who was she? Why did she know how to handle unstable cargo? And what was she doing here under the cover of being a silent worker? Tom didn't have the answers yet, but he knew one thing. He was going to find out. The next morning, Tom arrived at the loading bay with more questions than answers. The image of the hooded worker scattering that strange silver powder had not left his mind. Most workers would have stepped away from the crate, but she had run toward it. That was not normal. Tom decided he needed to watch her more carefully without making it obvious. The day began like any other. Cargo shipments arrived, scanners beeped, and the crew moved crates back and forth. She was already at work when Tom walked in, her hood up, head low, hands moving quickly. He noticed that she rarely walked in a straight line from one place to another. Instead, her puffs curved slightly, as if she was avoiding something invisible. At first, Tom thought it was random, but after a while, he realized she was moving in ways that kept her out of the direct view of the overhead security cameras. That made him think, was she hiding from the cameras, or was she simply used to moving in places where being seen could be dangerous? During the midday break, Tom went to the mess hall with the others but chose a seat near the window that overlooked part of the loading bay. While the crew ate and talked, he saw her walking along the far wall. She passed a set of large crates, paused for a moment, and looked toward the security checkpoint at the bay's entrance. Her gaze wasn't casual. She studied the guards for several seconds, then continued walking. In the afternoon, Tom had to check the docking logs for a cargo dispute. While searching through the records, he found something strange. 2 months ago, a small shuttle had arrived with only one passenger listed. The passenger's name was simply Ari, with no family name or homeworld recorded. The arrival was marked as off record, which meant it had been processed under special clearance. Tom had seen such entries before, usually for officials or undercover agents. Ordinary workers didn't arrive like that. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the log. Could Ari be the hooded worker? The timing fit. Later, Tom decided to see where she went after her shift. Most workers went straight to the cabins or the mess hall, but when the end of shift bell rang, she slipped through the far exit of the bay instead of heading toward the main quarter. Tom followed at a distance, careful to stay behind the stacks of cargo and the turning corners of the station's passageways. She moved quickly, always checking the corners before crossing them. After several minutes, she stopped at a maintenance door. She looked around once, then tapped the code into the panel. The door slid open, and she slipped inside. Tom waited for a moment, then walked to the panel. The screen now showed a locked status. His access code wouldn't work here. This area was restricted to station security and engineering. He stood there for a moment, thinking, why would a cargo worker have clearance to restricted areas? Before he could decide what to do next, the door opened again. Ari stepped out, still hooded, holding what looked like a small data pad in one hand. She closed the door and walked past him without stopping, her eyes hidden in shadow. Didn't glance his way. Tom pretended to be studying a nearby wall console until she turned the corner and disappeared from sight. That night, Tom couldn't sleep. He kept turning over the facts in his mind, her quick reflexes, her knowledge of dangerous cargo, her movements avoiding cameras, the special rival record, and now the restricted access. It all pointed to the same thing. She wasn't what she seemed. The next day brought another clue. A shipment arrived from a distant mining world, but the cargo was delayed at the gate because the security scanner detected unusual energy traces. While the rest of the crew waited for clearance, Ari stood near the gate, watching the guards carefully. She didn't move until the scanner confirmed the shipment was safe. Only then did she step forward to help move it. It was a small detail, but to Tom it felt important. She was always near the trouble before anyone else. In the late afternoon, while Tom was checking a cargo log on his portable screen, he saw movement in the reflection of the display. Ari was standing at the far end of the bay, speaking quietly into a small communicator. Her body was angled away from the crew, and her voice was too low to hear. A few seconds later, she put the communicator away and returned to work as if nothing had happened. Tom's suspicion was no longer just curiosity, it was certainty. She was here for a reason, and it wasn't to move crates. Still, he didn't confront her. If she was hiding her role, she probably had a good reason. But he decided that the next time something unusual happened, he would be ready to see exactly what she did. As the shift ended, Tom once again saw her heading toward the far exit. This time, instead of following her closely, he used the station's maintenance map to guess where she might be going. He took a different route, moving through side corridors, hoping to intercept her path. He reached a quiet junction near the maintenance tunnels. Moments later, she appeared, walking with that same quick, silent stride. She didn't notice him, but as she passed, Tom saw a faint metallic emblem stitched inside the edge of her sleeve. A small circle with 3 lines through it. He didn't recognize it, but it didn't look like a cargo company mark. She disappeared into the tunnels without looking back. Tom stayed there for a long moment, his mind full of unanswered questions. He had the feeling that whatever she was involved in, it was bigger than just the loading bay, and sooner or later, he was going to find out exactly what that was. The day began quietly. Cargo ships were arriving on schedule, scanners were working, and there were no problems in the bay. Tom almost thought it would be an ordinary shift. But in the middle of the afternoon, the station's lights flickered. A faint alarm tone echoed through the speakers. The workers looked up, confused. Rian tapped his comm. Control. What's going on? The answer came back quickly. Air control malfunction in docking gate 4. Pressure drop detected. All nearby bays, prepare for lockdown. Tom's heart jumped. A pressure drop near a docking gate could be dangerous. If the gate failed, the area could lose all air in seconds. Workers began moving toward the safe zones as the bay's heavy doors started to slide shut. The sound of the alarm grew louder. Tom noticed Ari. She wasn't moving towards safety like the others. Instead, She was walking quickly toward the far end of the bay, the direction of docking gate 4. Ari, Rian called out, "Get to the safe zone." She didn't answer. Tom hesitated for only a moment before following her. She moved with a speed that forced him to almost run to keep up. They passed through a side corridor that led toward the docking gates. When they reached the final turn, Tom saw the problem. A docking gate on the right side was partly open. Cold air was rushing through the gap, and a warning light flashed red above it. The pressure gauge on the wall was dropping fast. Two security officers were trying to access the control panel, but it was locked by an error code. One of them looked panicked. "The override isn't working," he said to the other dot without saying a word. Ari stepped forward. She pulled back her hood for the first time since Tom had met her. Tom stopped in his tracks. Her face was sharper than he had imagined, with smooth pale skin and bright, focused eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Small metallic lines ran from the edges of her temples down to her neck, faint and barely visible unless the light caught them. But what caught Tom's attention most was what she was wearing under the hoodie, a sleek black suit. With faint, silver patterns along the arms and chest, the material looked strong yet flexible. Nothing like a cargo worker's uniform. It fit her like it was designed specifically for her. The security officers stepped back, clearly recognizing something. Tom did not. Ari moved to the control panel, her hands moving quickly over the keys. The alarm tone changed pitch, but the gate was still partly open. She turned to the officers. "Switch the pressure route to the secondary channel," she said calmly. One of them nodded and activated a control on the wall. Ari then opened a small panel on the control board and pulled out a flat device from her belt. She connected it to the system and typed a rapid sequence. The gate began to close, but halfway through, it jammed. The pressure gauge was still dropping. Tom could feel the air becoming thinner. He grabbed the rail beside him, trying to stay calm. Ari moved to the manual override. She gripped the handle and pulled with surprising strength for her size. The gate finally slid into place, sealing with a heavy clang. The pressure gauge stopped dropping and began to rise slowly. The alarm tone faded, replaced by the station's regular background hum. The officers let out a breath of relief. One of them turned to Ari. "We'll handle the rest from here, Commander." "Commander?" Tom blinked. That title didn't fit a simple cargo worker. Ari gave a short nod and stepped back. She pulled her hood up again, hiding most of her face. But it was too late. Tom had already seen. They walked back toward the bay together. Tom stayed quiet at first, still trying to understand what he had just witnessed. "You're not just a worker," he finally said. Ari didn't look at him. "No," she admitted. "I'm not." They stopped near the entrance to the bay. The rest of the crew was gathered in the safe zone, waiting for clearance to return. Rian spotted them and came over. "Everything under control?" he asked. "Yes," Ari said simply. Rian looked at her for a moment, as if considering a question, but then just nodded and walked away to check on the crew. Tom glanced at Ari. "You've been hiding in plain sight," he said quietly. Her eyes met his for a brief second. "It's easier to work when no one is watching too closely," she said, before he could ask more. She turned and walked toward the far wall, resuming her place among the cargo stacks as if nothing had happened. Tom stood there, still processing what he had seen: the black suit, the speed, the calm in the middle of danger, and the way the security officers had listened to her without question. She wasn't just here to move crates. She was something far more important. And now, he knew it for certain. The day after the docking gate incident, the station returned to its usual routine. Cargo moved in and out. Workers shouted orders across the bay. Machines hummed and clanked. But for Tom, nothing felt normal anymore. He kept seeing that moment. Ari's had pulled back, the black suit, the metallic lines on her skin, and the way the security officers had called her commander. That wasn't something you could just forget. Tom decided he couldn't let it go. He needed answers. During the lunch break, he found Ari standing near the observation window, looking out at the endless black of space. Her hood was up again, hiding her face from most angles, but he knew she was aware of him before he even spoke. "You saved the station yesterday," Tom said. Ari didn't turn. "The officers could have handled it," she replied. "No," he said firmly. "They were failing until you stepped in. You knew exactly what to do. That wasn't luck. You've been trained for this." She was silent for a long moment, then finally spoke in a quiet voice. "You're asking questions you don't want the answers to." Tom crossed his arms. "I want them anyway." Her head turned slightly, just enough for him to see one sharp eye watching him. "You won't tell anyone?" "I'm not a gossip," he said. She studied him for a second longer before finally nodding. "Follow me." They left the bay and walked down a side corridor that led to one of the maintenance sectors. The hum of machinery grew louder as they passed into a section filled with storage crates, unused equipment, and dark corners. She stopped near a locked door and entered a code. The door slid open, revealing a small room with a central console, 2 chairs, and a wall display showing station schematics. Ari closed the door behind them. "This place is off the cruise map," she said. "Only a few people know it exists." Tom looked around. "You have a secret office?" "Not exactly," she replied. She removed her hood again, this time without hesitation. "My real work here isn't moving cargo. I'm part of a security unit from the Outer Alliance. I was assigned to the station 6 months ago." Tom's eyes widened. "Outer Alliance? The military?" "Not military," Ari said. "Something smaller and more precise. My unit works in places where official forces can't be seen. We stop problems before they become wars." He took a step closer. "Then why pretend to be a cargo worker?" She leaned against the console. "Because my mission depends on staying invisible. There's someone on this station who is smuggling restricted technology to hostile systems. I've been tracking the shipments, but I haven't found the main source yet." Tom frowned. "So the cargo bay is the perfect place for you to watch everything." "Exactly," she said. "No one pays attention to a worker moving crates, but they will notice if an officer starts asking questions." Tom glanced at the display on the wall. "Is this connected to yesterday?" The air pressure dropped. Her expression grew serious. "Yes, that wasn't an accident. Someone tried to open the docking gate from the outside without proper clearance. If they had succeeded, they could have moved cargo in or out without being scanned. The pressure drop was a side effect of their bypass attempt." A heavy silence filled the room. Tom realized the danger was much bigger than he had imagined. "Do you know who it is?" he asked. Ari shook her head. "Not yet, but I have suspects." She tapped the console, and a list of names appeared on the display. Some were engineers, some were traders, and a few were security officers. Tom's eyes caught on one name. "Wait, Rian is on your list?" She nodded slowly. "He's friendly with you, I know. But he has been on shift during every suspicious shipment I've tracked." Tom felt a small twist in his stomach. He liked Rian. He didn't want to believe he could be involved. Ari noticed his reaction. "I'm not saying he's guilty," she said, "but I have to check everyone." He took a deep breath. "So, why are you telling me all this? I'm just a worker." Her gaze was steady. "Because you followed me yesterday instead of running for safety. You didn't freeze up. You think before you act. I need someone I can trust, and right now, you're the only one who's seen what I can do and hasn't reported it." Tom hesitated. "You want me to help?" "Yes," she said. "I need another set of eyes in the bay. Someone who can watch the workers without making them suspicious. If you see anything unusual, a crate moved to the wrong place, a shipment skipped in the logs, you tell me directly." Tom thought about it. Part of him wanted to walk away and pretend he'd never heard any of this. But another part, stronger part, felt something else, the pull of curiosity, the sense of being part of something important. "All right," he said finally. "I'll help." A small, almost hidden smile touched her lips. "Good. But remember, not a word to anyone. If this leaks, the smuggler will vanish before we can catch them." They spent the next hour going over the plan. Ari showed him how to read the cargo manifest without drawing attention, and how to spot signs of tampering on sealed crates. She even gave him a small scanner hidden in the shape of a standard tool. By the time they left the hidden room, Tom felt like his world had shifted. The bay looked the same as always when they returned. Workers moving crates, machines lifting. Loads, voices calling out across the floor. But now he saw it differently. Every crate could be hiding something. Every worker could be more than they seemed. As Tom went back to work, he caught Ari watching him from across the bay. She gave the smallest nod, as if confirming their new partnership. He knew the days ahead wouldn't be simple. Someone here was dangerous, and finding them would be like walking through a maze filled with traps. But for the first time, Tom wasn't just a cargo worker anymore. He was part of something bigger, and somewhere in the shadows of the station, the smuggler had no idea two pairs of eyes were now watching. The station was quiet after the incident. The usual noise of machines and voices in the cargo bay seemed softer. People walked slower, still shaken by what had happened the day before. Everyone was talking about the hooded worker who had saved the station from the air control failure. Tom moved through the bay, carrying his inspection tablet. He looked around and noticed how some workers kept glancing toward Ari. She was back in her usual spot, wearing the same old hoodie, her head down while she stacked crates. It almost looked like nothing had changed, but Tom knew it had. He stopped a few meters away. Watching her work, she moved with the same quiet, careful rhythm, placing each crate in the right spot without rushing. If someone had just arrived on the station, they would have thought she was just a normal worker. But Tom remembered the way she had moved when the alarm had sounded. He remembered the sleek black armor, the calm in her voice, and the speed of her hands as she saved the station. When she noticed him standing there, she looked up for a brief second. There was no smile, no greeting, just a small nod before she went back to work. Tom felt a strange mix of respect and curiosity. He wanted to talk to her, but he knew Ari preferred silence. Later that day, Tom went to the observation deck. The large windows showed the endless black of space with distant stars glowing faintly. He saw Ari there, standing alone, looking out at the view. Her hoodie's hood was down, and the light from the stars reflected in her eyes. He walked up beside her, leaving some space between them. You could have let the system do its job, Tom said quietly. But you didn't. Ari didn't look at him. The system was too slow. Lives would have been lost. Tom nodded. So it's true. You're part of that defense group. She glanced at him, then back to the stars. We are not here for recognition. We work in shadows so others can live without fear. Tom thought about that. That's not easy. It is necessary, she replied simply. They stood in silence for a while. The station hummed faintly around them, somewhere. Far below, workers were still repairing the docking gate. Finally, Tom asked, why hide as a worker? Why not let people know who you are? Ari turned her gaze toward him. If they knew, they would watch me. The ones I am looking for would vanish before I could stop them. I need to see without being seen. Tom understood now. The quiet worker image was more than just a disguise. It was a shield, a way for her to move freely and spot danger before anyone else could. Do you ever get tired of it? Tom asked. Ari's expression softened slightly. Yes, but it is not about what I want. It is about what is needed. The comm unit in her pocket buzzed. She listened for a moment, then spoke in a low voice. Understood. I will check. She pulled the hood over her head again. Another shipment has arrived. I need to see it. Without another word, she walked away. Tom watched her leave, realizing he would never see her relax or talk much. She lived in a world of secrets, and he was only seeing a small part of it. In the days that followed, life on Cora Station returned to normal, or at least it seemed that way. Cargo came in and out. Workers laughed and argued over small things. Security officers patrolled the halls. But Tom noticed small details others didn't. Ari was always somewhere nearby, moving quietly between tasks, her eyes scanning everything. Once, during a break, Tom saw her sitting alone in the corner of the cafeteria. She was eating slowly, her gaze fixed on a group of traders who had just arrived. They were laughing loudly, but Tom could tell Ari was not watching them for fun. She was studying them, as if memorizing every movement. When she noticed him looking She gave the faintest shake of her head, as if telling him not to interfere. He respected that. One evening, Tom was leaving the loading bay when a young worker stopped him. Is it true? That quiet one. She's some kind of hero. Tom thought for a moment before answering. She's someone who keeps us safe. That's all you need to know. The worker frowned. Why keep it secret? Tom smiled slightly. Because if you knew everything, the people who want to harm this station would know too. And trust me, you'd rather they didn't. The young worker nodded slowly, though it was clear he still didn't fully understand. But Tom felt no need to explain further. Ari's work depended on the quiet. One cycle later, a small incident occurred in one of the maintenance tunnels. Someone had tried to plant a strange device near the air system. Security claimed it was found by a routine sweep, but Tom suspected otherwise. He caught a glimpse of Ari in the shadows that same day, her hoodie a little dusty, her hands tucked into her pockets as if she had just finished a job. He didn't need proof. He knew. A few weeks later, Tom was preparing to leave Core Station for another assignment. As he walked through the cargo bay one last time, he saw Ari lifting a crate. She didn't look at him, but as he passed, she spoke quietly, "Be careful out there." Tom stopped and looked at her. "You too." For the first time, he saw a faint smile on her face. Then she turned away, returning to her work like nothing had happened. As his shuttle pulled away from the station, Tom looked back through the small window. Core Station glowed against the blackness of space, a small hub of life in the endless void. Somewhere inside, Ari would be moving quietly, unseen, making sure that everyone could live their lives in peace. Tom realized something. Then, heroes didn't always stand in the light. Sometimes they hid in plain sight, wearing an old hoodie, stacking crates like they belonged to the background. But when danger came, they stepped forward, without hesitation. And that, Tom thought, was the kind of hero worth remembering.